Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is CMG TALK. This is Catherine Gallagher. Thanks for joining me this Saturday, and I hope your Saturday is going really good. So I wonder how your day is going so far. It's a perspective, isn't it? It's a mindset. How things are, how we choose to look at things. It's very interesting sometimes for me when I talk to people and I get to understand their perspective. Sometimes in day-to-day life, people will share their thinking, their perspective. We often see that, don't we? We see that in people telling their story of what they're going through, what's happened, a situation, an incident, a life event. There's perspective. If you think about what's going on with you right now and your perspective on it, how are you looking at it? When I ask people, how are you choosing to look at this? They often say, it's not a choice, it's just happening, it's just how it is. But it is a choice. We are choosing to see things a particular way. We train ourselves to look at things a particular way. It becomes habit. We continue to look at something a particular way, and then it becomes a habit. Because that's what we feed. That's what we do. We repeat till it becomes habit. If you look at something and you gain a perspective on it, but influenced by our understandings from past experiences, we do mental filling. Our brain decides what it is by filling in the gaps. If you think about situations and your perspective on it, we look at things in a different way, depending on our past experience, our tolerance level, our resilience level. And it also depends on how we're feeling at that particular time. If you're in a good place, if you're feeling really confident or happy, you often bounce back from things a lot quicker. If you're feeling really down and sad or exhausted, overwhelmed, it's hard sometimes to bounce back or to deal with things. Perspective is unique to us. Sometimes we'll ask other people because we want to check our perspective. We'll ask, what do you think? It feels this way to me. What do you think? Sometimes people give us a different perspective and we get annoyed and irritated because it's not in line with us. It doesn't really feel as if they're really understanding. There's no empathy. There's no compassion. It's annoying us that they're seeing it a different way. Our perspective matters. We often just want someone to say, that's terrible. That shouldn't happen. You deserve different. That is more than you should have to deal with. Sometimes people miss that, right? Instead of giving you that compassionate response, they'll say, oh, well, I think you're getting that out of perspective there. I don't think it's such a big deal. If I was you, I would do this, or I'd only look at it this way. Meet somebody where they're at. If they think it's terrible, sometimes you have to say, I hear that feels really difficult for you right now. I'm with you. How can I help? That's all we really want someone to say to us. We don't want to be told we're overreacting. Perspective matters. If you've been listening to my episodes, you'll have heard me talk about perspectives and the perspectives we get on social media, from social media influencers, from when we look at platforms and sponsors, when we look at algorithms and how they're programmed, and the perspectives that we're actually fed, because we are fed them, trust me. We know that though, don't we? Because we're intelligent. We know that these are things that were fed to us. and our perspectives are being aligned, manipulated, distorted, and we get misinformation. Now, that annoys me. I have to be honest, right? I don't like having misinformation fed to me, right? Because I'm about truth. And anybody that knows me knows I don't like fake, right? Right? If you've been listening at all to any of my episodes and you've got an inkling of anything about me, you'll know I don't do fake, right? I like things to be real and upfront. You'll know that any fake profiles that go on, I take them down as soon as I understand they're fake. In fact, I got a phone call just the other day, and it was somebody phoning to tell me that there was a fraudulent activity on a card. Well, the amount they told me, I knew instantly that wasn't true. People laughed when I told them. I was like, yeah, that amount, that wasn't happening. It wouldn't matter actually what amount, because it wasn't happening anyway. And I just went, no, and hung up. Made sure I had a dial tone before I picked the phone back up again. Yes, I don't like fake. I don't like scamming. I don't like phishing. I don't like skimming. I don't like anything like that. When I say I don't like it, my perspective is a lot stronger than that. But I'm a lady, right? And I'm being professional, right? Yes, I will never promote anything that is not genuine. But if you think about the things that we're told and how people promote a perspective that furthers their agenda, but it's in work. Yeah, people sometimes say things, they talk a good talk, don't they? But do they walk the walk? We've met people like that, haven't we? They often talk a good thing. And I've had people, right? I've had people that have said things to me, told me things, and I've questioned it. My gut's told me there's something not quite right about it. Yeah, and you just think, I don't know. You've also had people that have been very charming, very endearing, and very disarming, and you're thinking, okay, and they ask you to collude, or to collaborate with them, not collude, but maybe collaborate with them. And, you feel as if it's part of your job, it's expected of you, you feel you don't have a choice, let's be real, because maybe they're management, right? And you're doing a collaboration project or work with them, and they take all the credit, and their perspective is, well, we're all a team. Right? I can hear some of you going, oh yes, I've been there, Catherine. Yes. And then you have other people tell you perspectives, right? So I'm on a roll here with perspective. It's a subject I know a lot about. And you have people tell you a perspective of, it's not my best interest to promote you, because my perspective is that that would not further my agenda. Well, you can understand that's their perspective, but it's not a great one for you. Right? Perspective it's a very unique word, isn't it? It says a lot. It does say a lot. And often when we sit back and look at perspectives, we either are compassionate, we have a perspective, we're perspective taking, we were understanding another person's view, or we're perspective and we're isolating a perspective, we're only seeing our own view. When I work with people and they're maybe sharing a situation with me and it's involving other people, I'll perspective take with them and I'll ask them to look at it from the other person's view. Not because I necessarily am asking them to agree with the other person, but it's to help them understand the big picture. Like the big picture. Why would I do that, do you think? Various reasons can be helpful for us to understand where we stand, where they stand, to also understand and help us to look at behaviours and understand where we stand with behaviours, empower us, give us insight. It can help us grow, learn. It can be very powerful to do that perspective take. Some people find that very difficult to do because they don't want to see someone else's point of view. I don't care how they think. People say that, Catherine, I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to know. I don't want to understand them. It's just wrong. But if you understand, sometimes we can see that there might be a vulnerability there from the other person. They might be vulnerable, they might be scared, they might be unhappy, they might be sad, they might love us, and it might be they're doing it because they feel it's genuinely the best intentions. Sometimes the perspective is they're furthering their own agenda and they don't care the impact on us. That's a real perspective. If you think about perspective taking, that can be a very insightful tool. Perspective, how we see things, how our view is shaped by our experiences and our understandings, our view of the world, our upbringing, our experiences. And also, depending on who's involved. Sometimes we give people the benefit. The perspective is, well, it's how they are. Many times do we say that or hear people say that? Well, I know normally I would see it this way as a perspective, but given it's this person, I think it's just how they are. I'm prepared to overlook it. Or, normally that's something that, is a deal breaker. But I love them. I care about them. So I don't really want to see it any other way other than it's a mishap, a misstep. But it might be the perspective is, no, you're right, it's absolutely out of order, that's it, I know it's intentional, there's no coming back from it. We gain perspective though often from how someone is, by what they say or what they do. And sometimes we question their perspective. Is it real? Is that reality? Is that how this person really is? And that comes from often information. And often our gut, our intuition is telling us it's misinformation. We're getting misdirected. The perspective we're being given doesn't quite sit right with us. If you think about social media and about sponsorships and how everything is painted in a particular way, you hear people promoting and quoting numbers of followers when we know that most of those followers are bought or they're given, right? They're shared. Right? We know that a lot of people gain their followers by trading with each other. That's the reality. And a lot of these followers are actually not genuine followers anyway. They're fake profiles. So somebody's coming on and they're telling you you've got millions of followers or 1.5 million of followers or whatever. And the perspective of what they're doing, their brand or who they are, or that they're a social media influencer or whatever they call themselves, brand promoter or brand ambassador, and the sponsorship they can get 5,000, 20,000 for a post or a like or a share or a view. But we elevate that, we encourage that, we sponsor that, we make that happen by liking, sharing and viewing. Even if we don't like it, if we view it and we look at it, we give that person income. That's the reality. As somebody posted the other day and said, I don't want to see this anymore. I will not be somebody that participates in this person getting money from this and this type of post. I find it offensive. And they reported the person. And the creator had said, this is my lifestyle. I married a millionaire. I'm making lots of money. You know, I can't share certain information because you can't get it for free. You need to be sponsoring me. You need to be giving me, sponsorship to be able to see it. You need to subscribe to be able to see this information. Perspective. And it's all perspective, isn't it? On how people post things. Somebody was posting that was very traumatised. And someone said, I don't get what you're traumatised about. And they said, well, let me elaborate. I went out for lunch and I decided to go to a lunch place. And normally we spend about, I don't know what they buy actually for this. We spend about 5,000 or 7,000 on a lunch, but we went to, like sometimes to do real lunch, like, reality lunches. And I don't know what a reality lunch is. Well, I kind of knew they went real life, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, but it was so disappointing. It was so disappointing. And sometimes we go out and get my favourite dinner. And if it's so disappointing, it's very disappointing. Very disappointing for my partner. My husband was so annoyed. And he was so sad. And because he was so sad, that made me sad. And it was very traumatic. And there was a whole stream of posts. Now this person was getting money because they were getting noticed. Because we're making posts. They're getting sponsorship. And people were looking at this. And some people were going, well, very few people, to be honest with you, were saying, good on you. And other people were going, take this down, this is ridiculous. And their perspective was, this is outrageous. Why is this person? But I guess freedom of speech, I guess. Although where they were saying they were from, I don't think that really is the case. I think you have to think about it as a perspective, right? We decide whether we pay attention. When this came to me, I immediately blocked because it's not something that I really am interested in. Right? I like to look at things that are funny, yes, sometimes, but funny as in, not poking fun, right? Things that are, insightful, things that are, good information, right? But it's not necessarily somebody saying, look, I get 6 bags and they're $6,000, dollars each, and I get one of each colour, and or that wouldn't be bags, would it? That would be shoes. Shows you kind of legitimate, right? Don't buy £6,000 bags either before you ask. And somebody had posted, I buy, my last bag was 80,000, and I wanted one of each colour, and I was so disappointed because they didn't have this other colour, and it was such a terrible disaster. Because I was going out and I needed that colour for my outfit for going out because I had to look my best and shine my best for my partner. And I was thinking, just use one of the other colours, hen, right? Just colour coordinate, right? Really? That's not a disaster. It's perspective. Gain perspective here. Right? And the amount of posts, there was only one person that said, I can relate. And most other people were like, if that's the biggest disaster in your life, I don't think. I guess if it's your life's work and you've got to coordinate and you must have that bag because that's what you get paid to promote, I can relate. I don't think it was, though. I'm going to be honest with you. Perspective comes in different shapes and forms, right? It can affect our mental health perspective. But we can have things that are in a perspective that can be, mildly irritating, to things that, challenge us, stretch us, to things that can be quite difficult, to things that are alarming, to things that are traumatic. There's levels when we look at perspective. We get things that can make us grow, right? Things that maybe overwhelm us as a perspective. surprise us. Perspective has different ways of a viewpoint. It's how we choose to look at it. And people, I guess, as I said earlier, depending on their upbringing, depending on, the types of experiences and life experiences they've had, and depending on whether they've been given life skills as they've been parented and brought up, and depending on how they've been able to develop their tolerance level and resilience, depends on how they cope in life, and depends on whether they can manage. And there are some people who live a very affluent life, but maybe they've had a very challenging upbringing, and they know the difference between what's difficult and what's actually not a big deal in life. There are people who have had a very cosseted and very protected life, and their perspective of what's difficult and challenging and traumatic in the whole scheme of things, relatively to most people in life, wouldn't be necessarily that big a deal. Bringing the wrong wine to dinner wouldn't be a catastrophe. To some people it would be absolutely the world's end. But to most people it would be, if it tastes nice, it tastes nice. Right? And I do like my wine, right? I drink very little, but I like good wine, and I know when a wine is a good wine, right? But I wouldn't take that as a perspective. So perspective is something that often we don't necessarily challenge until we are feeling challenged. And sometimes if we see something as a perspective that doesn't sit right with us, it can cause us a lot of distress. And the reason why I'm talking about perspective is that recently, actually over the last couple of days, I had a few people posting, and then they were saying things that clearly were causing them a lot of alarm and distress, because they were seeing things that, in a perspective for them, it was very uncomfortable. And I guess when we have no control over what's put out there in society, and that's because that's society. We're all different, and we all have different backgrounds and different upbringings, and we live different lifestyles, and we have different, ways of living. And somebody had actually posted, if you live such an affluent life and it's real, and you're posting, comments about your affluence, you're going to have to expect that people nowadays, particularly that are struggling, are going to find it very difficult to take, as a perspective. You might want to have a bit of sensitivity. The response back was very much, I just enjoy my life, living my life and having a very nice life. And I'll never apologise for having a lovely life. That's, what was it? That's my purpose in life, is to be spoiled. That was the perspective and view back. So I kind of think that really spoke volumes, really. So if you think about how perspective is for you, and when you look at your life, and when life's perspective comes to you through different experiences and different challenges, sometimes you have to step back and not get involved or affected by other people's viewpoints, because it can be very difficult not to. We can be deeply affected by what other people do and say, and by their perspectives, and sometimes can't affect other people. We can't make other people be a different way. If they're choosing to be a particular way, then that's their choice. And who's to say that there's something bad about that? Maybe that's just how they are. We're always going to have differences in life. We're always going to have people that have a lot more and people that have a lot less. Because unfortunately that's society. It doesn't make it right. I don't think it makes it necessarily right. I think there's people that got so much wealth that they don't know what to do with, and they'll never take it with them when they're not here. And can't take it with us. So why would you not want to distribute it? I think people say they'll pass it forward to their own, but a lot of the time they don't. I don't know. I think having met people that have literally lost everything, and know people that are deeply, deeply in desperation and dire straits right now, I think that if you're spending 100,000 or 70,000 in a first birthday party, there's maybe a perspective there that we could look at. I don't know. I'm just saying. Because a 1-year-old isn't going to remember. They might see your video, they might like it, afterwards, but they're not, kids, babies. They just love to run around, have fun and enjoy and, be playful. Give them a cardboard box and they'll love it just as much. That's the truth. I told you I'm very down to earth. So I think, not that I give 1-year-olds cardboard boxes, right? But I think there can be a perspective and a balance. Somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, you're so funny, you make me laugh so much." Well, yes, I do have a good sense of humour, apparently. But I think sometimes perspective is something that we can get a good grasp on sometimes. I think balance is probably a good word as well. And in all seriousness, I sometimes struggle to see, the good sense in what society gives so much credence to. I don't know. Anyway, that's another story for another episode. But I think perspective, we'll leave it with perspective right now. But I think with perspective, I think sometimes it's a viewpoint, isn't it? And it's how we choose to look at things. And remember, it is a choice. If other people choose to look at things in a different way, that's on them. That's up to them. It might work for them. It might not. But I think it's about valuing you. It's about quality of life. It's about value. And you tend to find that people that are happiest are not always people, and the truth is, it's not always about how much wealth you have. It's about whether you have wealth of relationships and good connections and love and good relationships, and whether you actually feel that what you have gives you a sense of purpose. People tend to find that they're happiest, and the perspective here is that I think that people tend to find they're happiest not by just acquiring things, nice trinkets, nice things. They tend to find that they appreciate these things more if they've actually worked for them and earned them. That's the bottom line. In 30 odd years, of speaking to literally hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of people, I will tell you that people tend to value things when they've grafted and worked and earned, right? They've acquired it, they've worked for it, right? Because when you get something handed to you, you don't necessarily really value it because you look for something else. You're constantly seeking that gratification. That's really the bottom line. Anyway, that's another one. That's another episode we could look at. Instant gratification, right? Somebody said that to me the other day. Why is it I always look for instant gratification? That's a big one. We could talk about that for a long time. Okay, so perspective taking and perspective and looking at views and how we see things. I guess it's about, I think if we have a perspective, it's hard not to judge and make judgment. But sometimes it's about, having that perspective from a caring point of view, compassionate point of view, an empathic point of view. But sometimes we do have a perspective where we have a lack of tolerance of other people's perspectives because it just doesn't sit in line with our core values. And we don't really tolerate that perspective because we feel that it doesn't align with what we feel is just or fair or gives a good sense of, harmony in the world or equality and equity. So sometimes when we see other people being very extravagant or, lacking equity or equality, in what they do in their perspectives. We often show very little tolerance for that. And a perspective in that would often be shared. Okay, so hopefully you found that of interest. I'm not making judgment here. I guess I'm just sharing some things that have been said to me. And it was a conversation that struck this, inspired, I guess, this episode. I would love to see as a perspective here for me. I would love to see sponsorships. I would love to see people advocating, giving sponsorships and promoting, social media influencers for mental health. So if you're a social media influencer for mental health, or you're a sponsor for, and you want a social media influencer for mental health, here I am, right? I started, and I was one of the, if not the first, psychological ambassador. I coined the term about 30 odd years ago. If you want somebody that's going to be up there as a social media influencer promoting good mental health, why not? Here I am, right? Perspective. It's always about looking at what's good, I guess, for us and what we feel is a good way of looking at things. And often we look at viewing things in a way that works well for us. And getting those good perspectives comes from, I guess, addressing things that are not, healthy or not constructive, not productive for us. Okay, so next time I'll talk about something else. There was another episode that I was going to put on other than perspective, but I'll leave that for next time. Okay, take good care and thanks for joining me, and have a great Saturday. All the best. Until next time, remember, like, share and download if you enjoy the episodes, and until next time. Bye for now.